everyone, my name is Yi Wen. I'm a plant-forward chef educator based in Shanghai, China. I'm delighted to be invited by the Chef's Manifesto, global community of eco-conscious chefs working towards Sustainable Development Goals, especially focused on Sustainable Development Goal 2, to share an agro-biodiverse dish that's regional and seasonal. I'm actually at a wonderful permaculture farm called Heartland, based in Toming Island, which is only 1.5 hours drive from Shanghai. What I'm going to be using is a wonderful spaghetti squash, which has been steamed. After scraping, it becomes a low-calorie pasta substitute. It's indigenous to Toming Island, harvested in around May, June, and actually has to sunbathe for about 1.5 months, and then it has been kept in the cellar. Instead of the usual pad thais, we're replacing the refined flour with fiber-rich, antioxidant-rich, and also full of vitamins and minerals of spaghetti squash. Using some red cabbage, some zucchini, some bell peppers, red and yellow, and also some lemon later. Shiitake mushrooms. I've toasted some peanuts, chili sauce, ginger, raw cane sugar syrup, homemade Worcester sauce, some white pepper that I've grounded. And another indigenous ingredient in China is kudzu, which is a very strengthening root vegetable that has been dried and made into a powder, which we're going to use as a thickener in place of cornstarch. Kudzu is actually a whole food plant, and we actually use that in Chinese traditional medicine to strengthen our gut. Brown rice vinegar and a little bit soy sauce. It's made from 5 different types of grains. Garlic and also some rapeseed oil. Kombu shiitake broth that I have soaked for about 4 hours, so this becomes the broth. This is pea sprouts and is also one of the Future 50 foods. I really love the lotus because every part of it is edible. We can eat the actual seeds, and then after the flower is dried, it can become an ornament. Yunnan province of China, where they use different plants and flowers to create this beautiful colors of rice. Worcester sauce. Okay. And then we're going to add a little bit of the sweetener, the natural sweetener. Okay, we're going to add a little bit salt. Add some ginger and some white pepper, which I've grounded. Dilute it with a little bit water. To give it a little more Thai flavor. So now I'm mixing everything. Yeah, once the sauce is heated, the kudzu will start to thicken. Not too much oil. Put some garlic. First of all, we need to let vegetables express their natural flavors, but just with a little touch of different type of sauces can actually enhance the flavors and bring it to another level. Actually, a lot of B complex too. So since we can't really travel these days, we can travel through cooking. Add a little lemon juice at the end to make it a little more Thai style. Now we're ready to plate back to our spaghetti squash shell. Roasted peanuts. Spaghetti squash pad thai. This is with the lotus flower. It's so important to inspire more, to widen our taste and flavors, as well as using biodiverse ingredients so we can build a resilient food system. Wishing the Agrobiodiverse Conference big success this year. Thank you.
So I'm gonna make a pie using this succulent sea pumpkin, and I'm also gonna make a salad to go with it. So I love the leaves, they're very nice and succulent, so you can see, and they've got like a nice soury taste, so you can see that they'll work very well in a slaw. So let's get on with it. So first up, I'm gonna make the filling for the pie. So I'm using spring onion, which I'm gonna chop. I'm gonna use the sea pumpkin, which is the main ingredient today, and I'm also gonna use some nice feta cheese. So the idea is to try and incorporate the sea pumpkin into my normal everyday dish, and I love plant-based ingredients and I love indigenous ingredients, and this one is my absolute favorite right now because I'm just playing around with it, trying to find interesting things to do with it, and also just to incorporate it on the daily in my in my food, and so I can also just eat it more. So first up, I'm just gonna chop or slice these onions, these green onions, like just roughly slice them. So I'm just gonna roughly chop these, as you can see, and we're just gonna fry them together with the sea pumpkin, which I'm also gonna roughly chop, and I'll show you now. So the onions on the side, and then my sea pumpkin. What I like to do with the sea pumpkin is just to remove the leaves like that, and then I'll just chop up the stem for my salad. So I'll use the leaves for the filling, and then I'll use the stems for the salad. So I literally use up everything. So just gonna also just slice this, and I'm gonna cook these together, these two together. I'm just gonna fry them lightly, saute them in some garlic oil. My sea pumpkin has been cooked and sauteed. It's now, I'm just gonna let it cool, and I'm gonna add some feta cheese to it. Just crumble some feta cheese there, some nice chunks of feta cheese. I like the feta cheese because it's nice and salty, so it's gonna add a nice saltiness which pairs nicely with the sea pumpkin. So I'm just gonna mix that in. That's gonna be the filling for my pie. Oh, it smells amazing. It smells really, 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 really incredible. So now that it's mixed in with the feta cheese, I'm just gonna put it aside and then roll out my pastry. I'm just rolling out my pastry, and this is gonna be a free-form pie. So it's gonna be like a galette. It's gonna be a free-form pie, and I'm just gonna roll it out literally as natural as possible. Nothing fancy, just something simple that you can do at home also. Then I want to spread my sea pumpkin over there. Nice, it smells incredible. So now I'm just gonna bring that in. And you can just play around with the top, just simple and easy. We've put the pie on top of the baking tray, and I'm just gonna add a bit more feta just to bring in that saltiness. And now our pie is ready to go into the oven, and into the oven is gonna go in for 180 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. Now that the pie is in the oven, I'm going to make a salad to go with it. So it's going to be a nice salad using the stalks from the sea pumpkin, using some red cabbage, lemon, fresh herbs, some pickled ginger, just to add a little spiciness to it. So here's my pickled ginger, the stalks, the cabbage, some fresh mint, lemon, salt, and a little bit of olive oil. That's what's gonna go into my salad, which is a nice slaw, which is raw, crunchy, and we're using the whole plant. So we'll be using the whole plant, including the stalks of the sea pumpkin. So I'm just gonna roughly chop the stems. So you want them to be nice and thin, so they're crunchy, and you know your slaw has that nice crunch. And if you've got any seasonal fruit, you can add the seasonal fruit to the slaw. I like the sea pumpkin. I love the flavor of it. So I'm not gonna add any fruit in there, but it's gonna work very well with the red cabbage, and it's gonna look amazing. So I'm just gonna put it away. And then we're gonna do the cabbage. Add the pickled ginger, which I've just also roughly chopped, finely chopped, because it can be a bit strong, so you don't want it to overpower the salad. And then we're just gonna squeeze some lemon juice over it. Now this is gonna marinate while the pie cooks in the oven. Just gonna leave this to marinate for a little bit. And it's just so fresh. The sea pumpkin stalks are so delicious. Just gonna squeeze the lemon, a whole lemon in there. You want the flavors to come out. You want the cabbage to be slightly pickled. Some salt, a little bit of oil, olive oil on top. Now we're just gonna roughly chop up the mint. And just add that. And that's it. We're done, and the salad is ready, which is looking absolutely beautiful. And so is the pie. The pie is ready. Look at that. That is amazing. That looks absolutely incredible. So I can't wait. This is going to be my lunch today. So I can't wait to literally go and have myself a pie and some salad. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've found something delicious to make. I'm very excited to eat this. It's my first time eating sea pumpkin, but it smells incredible and it tasted amazing when I tasted it.
Hi, I'm Daniel Kaplan from Bogota, Colombia, and today I'm going to be making a traditional fish stew soup from the Amazon region from Colombia. I'm going to be using pirarucu, which is a fish that comes from the Amazon River. What we're going to do is we're going to saute it, and then we're going to add a few ingredients. Here we have a little tucupi. Tucupi comes from the cassava or the wild yuca. We have farofa, and we have farina, which is also from the yuca. A lot of the ingredients I'm going to have today are made out of the yuca. And this is tapioca, which we've rehydrated in a little bit of a stock that we made with some onions, with some wild onions. And we're going to decorate with the cassava. So here we have a hot oil. Make sure it's nice and hot. We're going to season our fish on both sides. Salt and pepper. This pepper comes from the Putumayo, which is it's also grown by the indigenous people in that region, also very near the Amazon, actually part of the Amazon. Okay. Once our oil is very hot, you can use any kind of oil. Here we're using vegetable oil. And I'm going to put our fish down. I left one with the skin, one without the skin, so we can get a little bit of a crispy skin, and that's for a little bit of decoration. So we'll cook it on the skin side down first. And then a little bit more salt. What's really nice about this tucupi is that it also works, it's a great flavoring ingredient. If you don't do it right, they don't do the extraction right, it can actually be toxic. So it's got a lot of umami, so it's going to give us a really, really nice flavor. And this fish, this stew or soup, however you really want to call it, is they eat it for breakfast because it gives you a lot of energy in the morning. You can let it still. I'm using a Teflon pan, which makes it a little bit easier, so whoever wants to do it at home as well. And flip the first piece. That's nice and brown. You gotta get a little bit more color. I like to add a little bit more salt once we flip it. Now we have achieved a nice crispy skin. It's going to cook for another about maybe 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to add a little bit of our tucupi now, and we're going to save a little bit for later. It's going to give it a really nice flavor. A little bit more. And we're going to add some scallions as well, also to give it a little bit of color and a little bit of more flavor as well. And add a little bit of now we're actually ready to plate our fish. You put the skin without the skin on the bottom, with the skin on the top. And put our onions, which have caramelized a little bit thanks to the tucupi. We're going to finish it. This is farina, which is after the cassava has been taken out, it's been dried. A little bit more. This is farofa, which is the same farina but toasted. We're going to add more tucupi around the plate. With a very nice flavor. And we will finish our dish with 2 different ingredients. This is the tapioca, which we rehydrated. This will give it a nice texture, a nice flavor. And this cassava will just break up a little bit. And we'll put it around the dish. Put it on the side as well. And with some more farofa and farina.
It's such a privilege to be here sharing with you all today at the 2021 Agrobiodiversity Congress. Today, we're going to be discussing agrobiodiversity, but it wouldn't be complete without bringing expert scientists to the table together with chefs who sit between the food that's produced and the food that we eat. So that being said, it's my absolute pleasure today to have 3 chefs joining me who are representing Indigenous foods from their native homelands. And I've also got a real honor to have my friend, Dr. Shakuntala, who will explore with me some of these foods that these chefs have brought from aquatic foods from Colombia, China, and South Africa. And food's been such an integral component of the rise of different civilizations. And it's a common language that we all speak. It brings out emotion, it brings out memories, it's connected to our cultural heritage, and it's also can be absolutely delicious. And so diverse aquatic foods have long been a part of many cultures, and yet often they're forgotten. We often just think about a few, or we don't really connect with them in the way that we can, or we have these pre-packaged varieties, which we become reliant on. And so we're going to try and investigate and dive a little bit in. So I'm going to start with you, Shakuntala. I want your this year's World Food Prize winner, which is this is your expertise, your space. So why diverse aquatic foods? You know, in a couple of minutes, can you just tell us why they're so important? Why is this such an important area to be looking at?
Thank you, Paul. And I've thought a lot about this also. Many years ago, I lived in Tanzania. And then when you're in Tanzania, one of the first things you would do as a non-Tanzanian is go to the areas where the birth of civilization, and that you would see that many of the populations started as populations along inland waters. And with inland waters came these essential nutrients that are so very important for cognition in human beings. And if I would give an example from the science that has been done. So if you would go to the lake districts of Tanzania, and you take breast milk samples from women, and you compare this with breast milk samples from affluent women across the globe, you would see that the concentration of essential fatty acids in the breast milk from women on the coast of the inland waters in Tanzania is much higher than from women in other countries. So all from the beginning, where we've been using we've been using perhaps the wrong measurement of what do we see as golden standards for nutrients in foods. The same goes true for, as you know, all the work I've done with calcium from small fish. Calcium in milk is considered the golden standard. But if you look at calcium from small fish, the concentrations are higher. The absorption rate is as the same as calcium from milk. So taking an equal quantity of milk and an equal quantity of small fish, which is the higher concentrations, 3 times the concentrations, we should be using small fish as the golden standard for calcium, not milk. But and this is where culture is so important, because we have accepted golden standards and standards for food that's not based on tradition and not based on culture, but based from ideas that we have brought from other parts of the world, which may not fit in as best as the foods from the communities in which we are studying.
Wow.
So when I talk about diverse aquatic foods, for me, the most important fundamental factor is diversity. Because in high-income countries, when we talk about aquatic foods, the idea and the way we see the diversity of aquatic foods is extremely narrow. But if you would go to places like Cambodia, Bangladesh, and I would go to villages, in no time, children would be able to tell me hundreds of names of different animals, plants, vegetables, seaweed that grow in aquatic foods and which are part of the culture and part of the foods. This, if I would ask children in Denmark, where I spend a lot of my time, name aquatic foods. If I would come up to 5, I'd be lucky.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Shakuntala.
So and then the last part I want to make is that again with what I would call science that stems from high-income countries, we characterize aquatic foods as being a source of protein. And that's so limited in the nutrient delivery from aquatic foods, because the first things I think about is essential fatty acids and micronutrients, minerals and vitamins, not protein. Yes, it is an excellent source of protein, but that's not where the value is in terms of nourishing people.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much to learn, and I think we could talk for hours. Makadi, I could see the chefs nodding, and I think we need to organize a longer conversation, Dr. Shakuntala. Makadi, so, you know, South Africa is obviously surrounded by coast, and sea pumpkin is something I knew nothing about. So what can you share about this indigenous ingredient and how you featured it?
Oh my word, it is such an amazing ingredient. I also just discovered it through Luby Rouge, who's also on the video.
Yeah.
And she's a small scale farmer who's actually doing the work, bringing back indigenous ingredients in and around South Africa. And her focus is on aquatic vegetables, because she's on the coast. I'm inland, I'm in Johannesburg, I'm inland, and she grows it in the coast. And it's because it's one of those ingredients or one of those plants that has been used by everybody in that area. So the Xhosas have got a name for it, the Afrikaners have got a name for it. So everybody has actually, shows that it's an indigenous plant from there. Everybody knows how to cook it. They've been cooking it for years, and it is so delicious. I was blown away. And the nice thing about it is that it grows all year round. So it's a perennial plant that grows all year round. So it's available all year round. And I did such amazing things with it. I mean, I ate it raw. It's delicious raw. I put it in salads. I still even have some even now, and it lasts in the fridge now for a month. It's been in my fridge for a month, and I just eat it on all sorts of things. So it's yummy raw. I've cooked it. I've put it in a bake. I've done literally everything with the sea pumpkin, and it's so delicious. So for me, it's one of those forgotten ingredients because I didn't know about it. And I think I know a lot of things about food, but because it grows on the coast, and especially the cold coast along the Pacific, not the Indian Ocean. So it's one of those cold plants that grow in the sand. Yep. It's beautiful. It's got such a delicate flavor. It really works with everything. And for me, learning about it, just working on this project and learning about that sea pumpkin, it's just opened me up so much to, the possibilities around plants that we don't know anything about. And when I looked at it, it looked like a plant I would literally walk away from. I wouldn't even think that you could eat it, but it was so delicious. It had such a delicate flavor. I absolutely loved it. So for me, it's one of those ones that, you can literally use, and it grows the whole year round, which is perfect.
That's
yes.
Absolutely amazing.
So Mukadi, you made an extremely important point with respect to using traditional and diverse foods in diets. That about seasonality.
Yes.
that affects a lot about how, especially in our modern fast world,
Yes.
how people use foods.
Yes, even availability. I mean, the fact that it grows all year round for me was a definite point, because it's like it's available. It's one of those, you don't have to wait for a certain season to come. You can have it all year round, which is why incorporating it into an everyday meal like a pie, something that you literally just make in no time, for me was key, because it's something, it's that accessible. It's not one of those you have to like go foraging for. It's literally available. And what's happened with Luby and her group is that they're growing it now, so it's available. It's not just available on the it's available in Cape Town. So because the soil in Cape Town where they're growing it in Bedi has got the same kind of consistency as seed, because it's also close to the coast. So they're growing it, so it's available all year round, and it's so well priced. I mean, I got 200 grams for 30 rands. Like that is, anyone can afford that, and that 200 grams has lasted me a whole month. So it's one of those, really, it's delicious, it's accessible, it's all year round, it's the perfect food, and it's packed with all these nutrients. I'm so happy I discovered it from Luby. I'm so happy. For me, I've learned a new thing, and I'm using it, I'm putting it in everything.
That's great. Daniel, the dish you cooked with a sweet water fish from the Amazonia rivers, and with some indigenous ingredients. And Colombia's got some of the most waterways in the world, so fish is this common ingredient. Tell us a little bit about the historical significance of this dish and this fish and these ingredients.
And yes, Paul, and if I should add, historical and the largest diversity of inland fish species in the world.
Really? Wow.
Absolutely. It's so true. That's why I didn't want to do a fish from an ocean fish. That's why I chose a freshwater fish. Like you said, we have one of the largest amount of freshwater fish in the world. This is a fish called pirarucu. The preparation I did, it's kind of like a casserole. I kind of stylized it a little bit to make a nicer picture in a way, but it's a traditional dish that they make for breakfast. Because as we know, it's a breakfast dish. And the reason for this is that this fish is so full of iron, full of minerals, and the indigenous people, they need something to wake them up, to get them going, full of energy. And I mixed it with some ingredients. Well, really, one ingredient is made the rest of the dish, which is kind of the yuca, which we also call yuca brava, which is kind of amazing, as from that one ingredient or that one starch, we get tucupi, which is the fermented yuca brava. It's fermented over a long period of time. We get the tapioca, which comes from the root. It's the starch from the root. We get the farofa, which is the flour. The farinha, which is the flour of the cassava. We get the farofa, which is the toasted farinha, and we get the cassava, which we make bread. So out of one ingredient, we can make a whole bunch of different things. And then what we did, we made a little broth with a scallion, and then the tucupi, which to me, it's actually become over the last few years like my favorite ingredient, because it's just full of umami, and I use it a lot in my cuisine in my restaurants as well. And then we mix it with this beautiful fish. It's actually the largest freshwater fish in the world as well. It grows up to 3 meters, over 200 kilos. And it's all over the Amazon basin, not just Colombia. You find it in Brazil, Ecuador, parts of Venezuela, obviously into Peru as well. Wow. So it's just a beautiful dish, and full of minerals, full of vitamins, extremely healthy. And the whole ancestral part of how we get the tucupi and how we were able to mix it into this one dish is really, really nice. And it was really great for me to do a fish dish, because I've been kind of encapsulated the last 2 years into livestock. And it was really nice when you asked me to do a fish dish. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that until now, and it was really cool.
No, it's great, Daniel. No, it's so great to also hear just about the different uses of the different ingredients, and then also how it connects, and then how, like, even just understanding that this is a breakfast dish, that's something that just like kind of shifts my thinking. And I think this is when we come to ingredients, we often think about them like, as Shakuntala said, it's a protein, and thus you eat it as a main course and that's my background and my understanding. But then that often is the way people see. But you think this is actually about eating this as a breakfast to get the day started, and it's about those nutrients. And I think this is really key. Yuen, I'd love to hear a bit about your dish. So I mean, your dish was stunning to look at, and that farm that you were at was just amazing. But why did you choose to feature this dish, and tell us a little bit about the significance?
Yeah, well, basically now we can't really travel, and I actually miss going to Thailand. You know, the sour and spicy flavors. And since spaghetti squash is an indigenous veg from the nearby island called Toming Island, it's only an hour and a half away drive from Shanghai. I thought, why not make it into a more healthy, low-calorie pad Thai style? Because in Toming Island, they usually just steam it, scrape it, and kind of put heated oil and some spring onions and make it like an appetizer dish. But then I just thought, why not play around with a more, creative way of jazzing it up in more exotic flavors with with some brown rice vinegar, some lemon, and things that Thailand would use, So, and also because of the amazing nutrients it has, loads of dietary fiber, antioxidants, minerals, vitamins, B complex, vitamins, and manganese as well. So instead of the usual refined noodle that Thailand uses in pad Thai, I thought, why not make a more healthy version and with the indigenous ingredient as well.
So the lotus flower, tell us just a little bit about the lotus flower, because like I mean, they're gorgeous to look at, but I never would think that you could eat them.
Yeah, I don't know if you see my earring. It's actually a real lotus that has been maintained with a resin. So Karen told me that we should include an aquatic veg, but the lotus root itself wasn't ready at the farm, but the flowers were blossoming beautifully. And since it's an organic permaculture farm, then I used the flower as a plating to add more color, to kind of make some contrast to the golden melon color. And also I love the lotus flower, the root, because every part of the vegetable is edible. Yeah. Even to the little vein. Yeah, I'm sure Shakuntala can say more, but even the leaf we used in steaming, and I used it also in the plating part.
Wow.
So Paul, it's extremely, I lived in Cambodia for 3 years, and it's extremely important to read about the value of the lotus plant throughout the history, but also in the 3 years, 3 months, 3 days with the Khmer Rouge regime. And you read about what lotus meant in terms of food for people all over the country. There are amazing stories that people tell you about the value of lotus in terms of food and nutritional benefits.
Wow.
All parts of the lotus.
So Shakuntala, I mean, from this kind of conversation, obviously it's very clear there's we have 3 different parts of the world, three different continents actually being represented by these chefs. And they're each talking about a unique set of ingredients that have a connection to an indigenous, component, but also a holistic view. Why is it so important for us now globally to really cook with these ingredients, to engage with these ingredients? What are some of the benefits that we can really see, apart from obviously the beautiful flavors and everything that's being talked about?
So if I would begin at the highest level, we've just completed the UN Food System Summit. And within that, the narrative has changed about nourishing peoples and nourishing people from all over the world. That's one of the narrative that's changed, that it's just not feeding the growing billions of the global population, feeding meaning our ideas about how we thought about foods with the Green Revolution, that that the focus should be on quantity and energy value, but now to nourishing with also including the quality of foods in terms of the nutritional value. But something that we haven't yet started talking about, Paul, is food safety. That's a very important part also of the quality of food. So this shift is happening now across agriculture sector, across the food sector, and the links to health and nutrition is becoming clearer and clearer and more important due to the rising cases that we are having of obesity and overweight and non-communicable disease. And it's becoming evident for policymakers, for investments, for for all, that this close link between nutritious foods, nutritious diets, and controlling obesity, controlling overweight and non-communicable disease. And extremely, one of the areas that came up in the UN Food System Summit was the importance of school feeding, especially now with COVID-19, and which has such a disruption on the intakes of food by the poor and vulnerable. And there are all the organizations from IMF, FAO, and communities throughout have identified school meals as an important pathway, especially now, as I said, with the COVID-19, because you will be nourishing children, which leads directly to better school performance, better work performance, healthier, well-nourished people, with a well-nourished woman giving birth to a well-nourished child, and with intergenerational benefits, which are so important for national development beyond just the economic value.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think this connection between people and planet is so critical in our food. And I think, as we do that, it's important to know where our food came from, how it's grown. And, we've talked about, Makati talked about the farmer. Daniel, you've talked about how this, connects with Indigenous communities, UN with the permaculture farm and the island, so how it's grown, but then also how we enjoy it and how you can turn it into beautiful dishes that can be practical and also very good for you. And so we're super excited that we now get to see each of our chefs take us through a recipe. And so we're going to continue on. Please stay with us and watch as we have this next section where we go to visit each part of the world with a chef and have a look. So you might want to cook along at home. Thank you.